Welcome back to the HMA Interview Podcast. We are excited to have three-time NCAA qualifier for Penn State, McKnight, join us today for the 49th interview. Before we roll the episode, let me fill you in on the latest at HMA Wrestling. First and foremost, we are very, very close to finishing up our next merchandise order, and we'll put the gear up on our site once we get it in. Also, our brand new Rockfin page is looking super clean, and we'd love it if you go check it out over at rockfin.com/HMA Wrestling. All of our content is completely free. All you have to do is sign up and create a free Rockfin account to view it. Alright, enough from me. Let's turn it over to McKnight.
All right, Coach Mark McKnight, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jude.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Hey, where are you right now?
I'm in my guest bedroom. I like it in here. It has nice lighting. I never really hang out in here. And,
you don't hang out in your guest bedroom? Like, it's not the hangout spot?
No, not really. There's a TV in here, but it's not even plugged in. And I'm pretty proud of it, though. I actually mounted the TV to a TV mount on the wall, which, that's pretty serious because I got to use power tools, and I did it right.
Nice.
And it's still hanging there to this day. So
I tried to hang a wall hooks for like my sweatshirts or whatnot. Just fell right off the wall. Broke all the hooks.
I'm not too handy
good.
myself, so
Nope.
I grew up training hand-to-hand combat, so my skills with a hammer are pretty limited.
No, me too. Not Ezra. My younger brother Ezra, so good. He can throw all sorts of stuff up. He's handy.
Oh, the Swisher family all has their skills, their trades.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Man, so Coach Mark, what were you doing this past weekend?
Well, this past weekend, Jude, I was in Somerset, Pennsylvania, near a little town called Rockwood, and I was officiating a wedding.
What? Officiating a wedding?
Right.
For who?
Good question. For Penn State wrestling alumni, Matthew McCutcheon.
Matthew McCutcheon. Dang.
Yeah.
Wow. Coach, how long have you been officiating weddings?
Let's see. I would say my first wedding was back in maybe 2012, 13, somewhere around there. And it was, guess who it was for?
Who?
Fellow Penn State wrestling alumni, Tim Haas.
No way. Timmy.
Yeah.
And did he?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so this is a good story. So I came back from competing in France. I was over in Nice, competing in an overseas tournament. And at this point, I've never really had too many overseas tournaments. And, I had come back from that, and I walk in the door, and I'm catching up with my roommates. I'm actually living with Tim and his fiance, Heather, who was a Penn State alumni gymnast. And I'm like, hey, Heather, how's it going? Good. Oh, it's good to see you. How was France? Great. We're making small talk. And then I just go, hey, how's the wedding planning going? And she's like, Mark, it's going absolutely wonderful. She's like, but there's just one thing we can't figure out. And I'm like, what's that? And she replies, well, we're not sure who's going to marry us. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Don't you just get somebody down there? And she's like, well, it's just weird. Like, we're going to have some complete stranger marry us, like some priest or justice of the peace or whoever can do it down in Florida. That's where the wedding was, Florida. Mm-hmm. And I'm just looking at her, and I'm like, well, I'll do it. And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't know. There's got to be a way, right?
Right.
And so I Googled it, and the Universal Church or the Universal Church of Life or something, some website popped up immediately. And there's a picture of David Letterman, the old TV host, holding a certificate that says I can legally marry people. And I'm like, well, if David could do it, I could do it.
Yeah. Right.
So I went on and I paid an $8 for this certificate. I watched a how-to video or something, and next thing you know, I'm licensed to marry people. Whoa. And yeah.
And how many weddings have you done?
Oh my gosh. So that's a good question. I've actually lost count. I know I'm above 10, and I'm not sure if I'm in the teens yet. I need to go back. People were asking me that this weekend. How many have I done? And I need to go back and just kind of figure it out and see how many I've actually done. So I'm right near the teens, I believe.
And now are these weddings for people or are they like, people just hire you for a weekend or what?
Good question. So most of the people that I've I've done are like family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my wrestling friends, right? Let's see, I've done Jake Varner's wedding, sporting the shirt.
Nice.
No big deal.
No big deal.
You got Eric Thompson. I performed his wedding. Adam Lynch is the director of operations for Penn State, my former teammate, right? I did his wedding. I just did McCutcheon's. I've done my barber. Her and his husband. I've done one random wedding where I didn't even meet the couple. Eamon, remember Eamon Knoll? You know Eamon,
Love Eamon,
right? One of the local wrestlers here at St. Joe's. His mom approached me, and she's like, "I heard you do weddings." I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Would you want to do my sister's?" And I said, "Yeah, it fits my schedule. Let's do it. It's down in Lancaster. We'll make it happen." And so I just emailed her sister the whole time she was emailing me back, and I went down there and I prepared this ceremony for them and knocked it out of the park and wished them the best of luck. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
easy peasy.
Yeah, it's been cool. And I don't do it to really make a living. I just kind of want to help out my fellow, wrestlers, family, and friends. So
that's not something like people really think about, right? When you think about a job or think about like something that people can do for money. You don't think like, officiate weddings, right?
Yeah,
no, but
absolutely.
Someone's got to do it, don't they? So it's pretty special.
Yeah, it was. It's really cool that I've been able to do that and be a part of somebody's like something that's as special as marriage, right? And I get to be kind of a part of it.
That's pretty awesome.
And I'm not a stranger to most of these people. So,
right.
It's just kind of cool how I come into their life and I'm able to do that for them.
Give back in a way.
Yeah.
Give back in a way.
Yeah. The place that this place was at was really beautiful too. It was on a maple farm. And you're driving down this hill in the middle of nowhere, and there's these tubes running from maple tree to maple tree, and they're taps. And they would flow all the way into like this vessel, and then the guy would take it to his like little plant there, his little processing plant, and he would make maple syrup. I mean, it was just really, really fascinating, and just a beautiful, beautiful atmosphere for Mr. and Mrs. Matt McCutcheon.
That's awesome, Matt McCutcheon.
It was awesome too, Jude. There was tons of Penn State alumni there.
Yeah.
Just because Matt was such a ambassador for wrestling, and he married a track runner for Penn State too, and so, but Matt was also on the student board, I think, or was involved with it somehow, and so he had a lot of friends in other sports, and it was just really cool. We did a big alumni photo, and yeah,
that's awesome.
It was awesome.
That's awesome. So, and then you're back here in Bellefonte, PA, getting ready to go back to the M2 Training Center, do some coaching. But before we talk a little bit about that coaching itself, for longtime listeners of the podcast, you'll know that you were on, what is it now? It's got to be.
Oh, it's a long time ago.
It's got to be like last August. It might be a full year almost.
I can't remember.
It's been a while, but you were on a while back. And if you haven't listened to that episode, you might not know all the details of who Mark McKnight is. So, Coach Mark, you want to give us the mini bio, it's the word slipping my tongue, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
Coach Mark?
Who am I? Mark McKnight, born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Phenomenal place to grow up at the WPIL. I did not have to travel very far for good competition. So growing up, it was just awesome. I was able to come out of this environment and everything like that. Won a couple PJW state championships.
Oh, that's not a couple. That's like 4.
Yeah, that was 4. I held up to number 4, and then placed a few times at states. I hit second. What I take? Second, third, first. Had a bunch of. I was a 7-time All-American at Fargo. I got a national championship in Greco my senior year, my last year as a junior. And I want to just say, I'm not saying like these kids that are achieving All-American status this year, like in Fargo and all that stuff, because it's not easy to do.
Mhm.
But man, we had the old school pools where the brackets were extremely long, and you had to win your pool, your side of the bracket. I mean, the one year I took second and third, I wrestled 26 matches in 7 days with 6 weigh-ins.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's the kind of grind we had to go through if you wanted to stand on the podium multiple times. And then I actually started my wrestling career in college at the University of Buffalo. I got MAC Freshman of the Year. Pretty sweet.
Nice.
And then lost twice in the All-American round, and I just kind of needed a change in my environment and ended up transferring to Penn State. And I've kind of been here ever since. So I moved back to Penn State to wrestle for the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club back in about late 2010. I competed all the way through 2016, and now I'm retired from competition, and I coach, the senior level athletes there at the RTC, and I'm also involved with Coach Taylor's club, M2. So I'm the head coach of M2 Training Center.
Yeah, you carry that whole thing on your back.
See that? See these shoulders? Yep, I'm holding that place up.
Man, and you've been involved in coaching wrestling for, like you said, it's been what, six years now? Just about
what? Way longer than that, Jude. I coached you 10 years ago, pal.
Dude, it's been a very long time.
Well, put it this way. I started wrestling when I was 5. I'm 35 and a half now.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been involved with this sport for 30 years, and I started coaching when I had my own kids programs. I've always helped out coaching with clinics and things like that. But I was actually running the State College Youth Program 10 years ago while I was still competing. And that's when I first met you and your dad and brother and stuff.
Yeah,
the
whole Swisher clan.
10 years later, we're doing podcasts because they didn't even exist back then.
Right? It's pretty special. And so you've been around coaching a long time. I mean, like you said, like just being around it. So, I mean, you're an observant guy. You've seen the right way to do it. You've been in one of the best college rooms in the country and been around some of the best coaches in the world.
Very fortunate.
Also, you've been to crazy youth tournaments where you have dads, losing their minds in the corners and screaming and all sorts of stuff. Man, what are some things you've noticed about coaching at, that, youth, high school level, some do's and don'ts and some successful tips maybe?
Well, let's start with practice, right? And I'm glad you said that. You brought up the environment that I'm in, and I'm being influenced by one of the best coaching staffs in the world, and it's kind of cool because I try to sit back and I learn as much as possible, and I sit there and I watch. Let's talk about practice, right? So imagine this scenario: you have a kid who's very energetic. He's in practice. He's not listening. He's jumping up and down. You're constantly telling him all this stuff, and he's just not really able to follow the rules. And that's how kids work sometimes, right? Some kids just are. I mean, I was a ants in your pants kind of kid. I couldn't stop moving, and I get that. But what happens is these kids are doing these behaviors in practice like that, and then parents are taking them, or allowing them to go to these tournaments, and these kids are like, placing in the tournament and everything like that, and they're having fun. Right? They're winning these tournaments. They're getting medals, and it's always fun to do that stuff and stand on the podium. But what the parents aren't recognizing is, this kid's behavior. You're allowing this kid to not pay attention, and just kind of be silly and disruptive. And then you're saying by taking them to this tournament and letting them wrestle in it, whether they place or not, you're saying, hey, it's okay to do that in practice, right? And I think, we just need to kind of slow down and focus. I think parents need to focus on practice a little bit more, because, if the kid's winning every tournament, but he's not paying attention in practice, well, you're reinforcing that habit, and you want that kid to pay attention. So what do? Hey, son or daughter, when you're in practice, you really need to pay attention. Okay, mom or dad. And so the next practice, he doesn't do it. Okay, mom and dad. Or mom and dad brings it back up. Okay, son, we talked about this, or daughter, you need to pay attention in practice. He says okay, or they say okay, and it doesn't happen. But then they take them to a tournament and they win the tournament, and they're like, well, I don't have to pay attention in practice.
Right.
And so, what the parents should do is say, hey, you're not going to wrestle in a tournament until, you start listening to the coaches and you're paying attention.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't reward the behavior, right?
And that happens a lot. And because, parents want these kids to have matches and they want them to have success. And I understand that, but I believe you're going to have more success if you have a successful practice first. So, and then when you communicate with your kid, this is another thing, Jude. When you communicate with your kid, we get parents that are sitting there and they're like, oh, I like to go to this place to wrestle. They have a lot of hammers for partners. And you hear this all the time. Oh, he's wrestling with so-and-so down here at this place. And, they're just really good partners. They really battle. And I brought this up in our senior level class in front of you guys. And I said, well, does a partner really matter? If you're not staying in your stance, or if you're not trying the moves you're learning in practice, if you're not paying attention, does it matter who you're wrestling? I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
It doesn't matter if you're wrestling the best kid in the state or the worst kid in the state. If you're not following proper practice protocol, well, then you're not going to get better. And I think that's one of the things that parents got to realize is it doesn't matter who you're wrestling. It's up to your kid to hold themselves accountable and get a good practice.
How can you, one of the things is, like you said, these are kids, right? And oftentimes kids lack, not even oftentimes, like most of the time, kids lack self-motivation. How can you as the coach or you as the parent of one of these hyper kids, how can you motivate them or give them the tools to seek out these sorts of the stuff we're looking for, like you said, like staying in your stance, proper drilling habits, staying focused. This stuff is it's hard to do naturally. Because naturally, humans don't want to, we don't want to work hard. We don't want to stay in good position and things like that. We kind of want to, be lazy and do our own thing. So as the coach, as the parent, what tools can you give your child to do this?
Well, as a coach, from a coaching's perspective, and what's awesome too is, Jude, you come and help out with our elementary program, so you see me do this. Is I'm talking about it constantly. I'm bringing it up constantly, how to drill correctly. And I will stop practice and I will remind these kids how to do it. And I'm trying to mentally, gently, but sometimes firmly beat it into their heads that this is what we have to do. And it's like you said, and I know they're little kids and sometimes you have to lower your expectations, but I would drive myself crazy if I didn't try.
Right.
So, and that's the kind of things that I think, that for me, I can focus on. Is just a constant repetition, the mental repetition of me saying it over and over again. Eventually, it's going to stick. Dude, it might take 3 years for this 6-year-old to figure it out. But when they figure it out, when they're 9, they're going to just take off.
Right.
And then from a parent's perspective, and this is something I think we need to do a better job of educating our parents. What should the parents be looking for when their kids are at practice? You know how the dads are over there or the moms, and they're over there like judging their kids on whether they're winning or losing in the go. And I don't think that's something that we need to focus on. We need to focus on their effort, right? If your kid's getting his butt kicked, are they getting up right away and just getting back in there and throwing themselves in the mix? I mean, that's something to pay attention to. Parents need to focus on, is my kid paying attention? Are they doing what the coach is asking? So if the coach asks, hey, when you finish your double leg, we're going to break this person down and throw a half Nelson. Is my kid doing that? Is my kid doing the moves that they learned in practice that day or ever in any practice? Are they trying those moves when we do these live situations, or are they trying to do the crazy moves they learned on flow? Right. And I think there's a time and place for the stuff that you do see, the technique that you do see on these websites. But, there's so much focusing on winning and losing that I believe if you stick to what we're coaching, you're going to increase your chance compared to some crazy move you've learned on the internet.
Right.
And I think that goes for the parents too. They need to realize that too, that if they are going to enforce technique, even though they're parents, they're not necessarily coaches. I mean, some have wrestling backgrounds and things like that, but they are at the end of the day parents. They should be enforcing these habits like I talked about. And if they are enforcing any sort of extra technique, it needs to be on the same page as the coach. Because, if we teach something like, we're always shooting from the inside tie, and the parent goes and shows a move that's going to counteract that, now the kid's going to be super confused. I'm supposed to listen to dad or mom. I'm supposed to listen to coach. Now I'm doing both.
Yeah. And especially
was that a clear tangent?
No, I think that's right. I think you're absolutely correct. And like, that was kind of what I was going for, is like, it's almost like, can we give a seminar to parents to help them,
We can and we will. And I'm glad I'm using this podcast as kind of my jump off point, because I'm still trying to convey. I want to figure out all the information and how to convey it to these parents. Mm-hmm. And then eventually, I mean, at least for my club, and I mean, if any parent wanted to pick my brain, I'd tell them, but I know for our club, M2, I would eventually have a talk with these parents and just kind of, and have these expectations for them to what to look for. Mm. So, and it's not about winning or losing either. And I think I learned this from the coaching staff here. They have an expectation on effort, and that's what you need to be paying attention to. The effort of your kid.
Man, and that's one of the cool things about coaching, is if you're with the kids for a long period of time, you know when they're putting in effort, when they're putting in that whole thing.
Absolutely.
But no one ever said it was easy, right? Like, no one ever said, like, for these parents and stuff, like, nobody wants to be the crazy parent. Nobody wants to be the dude in the corner who's screaming all sorts of wild things and making your kid cry and whatever. So, what can you say? Because that's how coaching is done primarily. It's through talking, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
What can you do verbally to help your kid, maybe in the heat of a competition, in the heat of the moment? What can you say to help them stay focused
Well, let's talk about what not to say first.
Oh, okay. All right. What not to say?
How about this? Shoot! You gotta shoot, right? And it might be a short time situation that your kid needs to score, mm-hmm. and there's 20 seconds left, and as a parent or coach, you're yelling shoot,
right?
And the kid, what ends up happening is the kid panics and they dive in there, and then they give up a go behind because they were trying to do their best to listen to the coaches, mm-hmm. and so and I think. In that particular situation, and we haven't done this in practice in a while, and it actually makes me think about maybe I will do it soon, is that starts in practice. You gotta prepare in practice for short time when you're down by points, mm-hmm. right? And then as a parent or coach, maybe that's something you can talk about on the way to the tournament. Like, hey, little Johnny, if you're down by a point with 20 seconds left, your high crotch is really awesome. I think you should get to that inside tie and hit your high crotch, right? And then when you're in that situation and there's 20 seconds left, you calmly say and instruct your wrestler to go, hey, look for your high crotch. You're not going, shoot! You gotta shoot! You gotta do it!
Because then the other kid knows. That. The other kid knows. He's like, oh, I bet he's gonna shoot. I bet he's gonna shoot.
Well, and the other kid knows he's winning too.
Right.
So he's not gonna be aggressive, or they're not gonna be aggressive. So it's just kind of funny. And then another one's I love this one, Jude. When parents are like, hey, off the whistle, you gotta chop. You're gonna chop right off the whistle. Like, hey,
off the whistle.
Hey, off the whistle, and they whisper it. They're like, chop, and they do the hand motion, chop, right? So the kid makes eye contact with the coach or parent, and they're like, yeah, chopping off the whistle. So then you chop off the whistle, and then you hear this after they're doing it, the kid on bottom scrambling around, you go, under the arms. You got to be under the arms. And then I'm over there watching this happen, and I'm like, bro, you just told the kid to off the whistle do something that has them over the arms.
Right.
You're conflicting technique. You got to coach them through it. If you want them under the arms, you should do that right off the whistle.
Right.
Or you should say, hey, when you chop, you're trying to get that cross wrist, and if you don't get it, let's go back under the arms and go to plan B. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of funny how parents get excited and they yell that kind of stuff.
Man.
What's some other ones? Do you have any?
I like the ones where when they scream, run it, run it, run it. Or that's what Coach David had tweeted about that. He was like, attention all coaches, parents, screaming run it doesn't actually increase the move's chances of working, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
we're in hand-to-hand combat.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids that usually participate in this sport, for the most part, understand that. So when they do get a hold, they should know to do it. And again, that's preparation and practice,
Right.
You need it, or leading up to the match. If you have a kid who sometimes locks up a half Nelson and just holds on to it, that's something that needs to be addressed before the match.
Right.
And then you don't need to sit there and scream it during a match. You prep them before that. And then, if they're not running the half, which most kids are going to do it,
mm-hmm.
You might have to say, hey, and instead of telling them run it, tell them how to improve their half, slide your elbow forward, start to take their arm up over their head a little bit. You don't just sit there and yell, run it, because
right.
if they don't have the proper technique to begin with, then you're just going to try to run a bad move,
mm-hmm.
So, and then how about this? This is one thing I like when coaches are like, hey, you got to keep wrestling here.
Yep, wrestle here.
That was another Twitter one. I think some people were talking about it.
Wrestle
and,
here.
I look and I gave you all my matches that
yep.
I gave you all my matches to put on a hard drive for me, because when it comes to technology, I'm a little nearsighted and I'm just not savvy at all. And so, I enlist the help of, techie guys like yourself.
Thank you.
But if you watch some of these scrambles that I'm getting
right.
in, and they're just wild.
Mm-hmm.
And I got coaches in the corner, and I know they're excited, and we're in the NCAA tournament, but they're yelling, wrestle here, wrestle here. Well, Jude, you know me. I'm a competitor.
Yeah, what else are you going to do?
I'm not going to put my head down and concede a takedown or a reversal.
Right.
So, and then when you're yelling like that, think about the stressful situation that you're in. You're already in a crazy scramble.
Right.
And every point matters at the NCAA tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes for youth tournaments. This applies here, youth tournaments and high school tournaments, whether they're big or small. And you're yelling these things excessively at the volume, and what comes with that is stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you might be like in a crazy scramble, and you start hearing this yelling from the corner, and you might be focusing on that instead of focusing on what you're doing out there.
Right.
And I think coaches have to understand that these kids are competitors. They're gonna wrestle through the positions.
Hmm.
And they're not going to concede that takedown or that reversal or whatever it is. And they got to accept that. And this comes from the practice room. And this is where our club really gained ground on other clubs, is we wrestle through every position. You're one of the best at it. And that's conveyed in practice. And if you have a wrestler who has sometimes give up in a certain position, or if a parent wants to talk to their kid about it, hey, every time somebody's in on a single leg, you kind of relax. Well, let's stay focused. Let's stay focused. And then if you're in the match, just say, hey, V's on knees. Let's continue to sprawl. Arch your hips in there. You're not yelling, wrestle here, let's go sprawl. You're guiding them through the position.
Right. And offer technique, right?
And I get it. It's easy for me and you to sit here and talk about this. We're students of our sports, and I've been coaching and involved with wrestling again for 30 years, and it's easy for us to sit here and understand that. So what I want to communicate to these parents that think they're yelling the right thing and they're yelling these stressful things, they need what they need to do is just kind of stop. And if you don't know how to help the situation, just don't say anything at all. Or how about, hey, great job, hang on here, and that's it. You don't sit there and say, hang on. You say, hey, great job, way to wrestle. good job. And you just reinforce it with a positive remark, and reward them with a positive thing. If they give up a take, think about this, and we'll take it down to like a lower level. You got that kid that gets pinned every match, he gets pinned every match. And you have these kids. It takes a while for someone to develop that killer instinct and not want to go to their back. But you have that kid who goes to his back and he fights off his back. Hey, great job fighting off your back. Let's go build a base. And you're encouraging him to do these things out there, or he survives the period. Hey, great job. Keep it up. Let's get to our shot, off the whistle. We're going to go neutral. You're going to get to that shot. And you just kind of try to guide these kids and wrestlers in a positive way. And if you can't think of anything to say and improve on the technique and in the position, either say something positive or just don't say anything at all. You got some of these crazy parents and coaches that are just screaming from the corner and they lose their voice on the first day of the tournament. And it's just like, I know you're enthusiastic and you want everybody to win, but how much are you helping just screaming your head off like that? So I don't know. I had crazy parents that screamed a lot.
Right.
So, and that's just kind of it. And that it comes with the territory. And I don't think anybody's told my parents how to act properly. And again, this is something that we are going to hopefully address in the as I continue to talk to parents in our club. We're going to talk about what to yell, because me and Coach Dave and Coach Eric are all a little busy. We are
a little bit,
and sometimes we can't make it to these tournaments and these dual meets. And, we want to make sure that the parents know what's up, how the level of expectation that we want to have them, talk and how to coach their kids. So, and it's fascinating. Again, Jude, I'm working on all the verbiage of how I want to say to it. I'm using this podcast as this is one of the first times I'm vocalizing it. Hopefully I'm doing okay.
You're doing excellent.
And so, it's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to kind of figure this all stuff out. And then I'm going to hopefully educate, future parents, wrestlers, and coaches.
Coach, here's an interesting question. So, like I said, you've been around this. You've been around the sport for 30 years. Long time. And like I said, you've been around these head coaches and whatnot. Have you? What kind of interactions have you had with any head coaches, big names?
There's two stories that kind of stand out, and we'll get to those in 1 second. But what's kind of cool? I was thinking about Jude, and I didn't have time to really figure it all out, but I competed against a lot of, I actually physically wrestled against a lot of head coaches that are current coaches right now.
Yeah.
Angel Escobedo's down in Indiana, Joe Dubuque's in Princeton, Sanders in Minnesota. He might be RTC. I'm so bad at this stuff. But,
it's fine.
Either way, man, he's a good coach and a good wrestler. And the list goes on, and I've competed against some of the current coaches that are coaching now too. So I wrestled against some of these guys, physically in a match. And then I also wrestled against them from they were coaching against me. And that includes the three coaches from Penn State too.
Really?
Casey coached against me when he was at Michigan and I believe Iowa State.
Whoa.
Central Michigan, sorry, and Iowa State. And Coach Cael and Coach Cody both coached against me when I was when they were at Iowa State too.
No way.
So that's kind of cool. One of these days, maybe you can help me because you're a lot better at this stuff than me. We'll figure out how many opponents I've had, throughout
Well, there was one.
Nicholson's another one. I wrestled Troy.
Right.
He's coaching for Colorado out there, doing a great job. So it's just kind of cool.
I noticed this. I think it was in one of the videos you sent me. Eric Morell.
Yeah, Eric Morell. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's at Bucknell right now, right?
He's at Bucknell. Yeah, great competitor, man. Dude. So I watched. If you watch those matches, right? I wrestle Eric several times, and the first time, I just kind of took it to him, and I was all over him. And he didn't have an answer for me. And then we wrestled in the duels, the national duels, I think, and the match was a little bit closer. And then we wrestled at the NCAA tournament, and that dude turned it on, man. He wanted to win, and it just says a lot about him as a competitor. Like he was, and I never thought about it until I watched these matches, and like that last match was really close. And it just says a lot about him and some of these guys that I've wrestled, that they wanted to win, they wanted to beat me. Right. And and I'm grateful for the opportunity to wrestle them, because they made me better. So it was just kind of cool perspective from there. But speaking of NCAAs, so 2008, I was voted in. I was an unseeded wild card. I had an up and down roller coaster season. I beat some ranked guys and I lost to a lot of unranked guys, and I ended up. Go ahead.
What do you attribute to that?
That's a story in itself for another time, Jude. I wasn't. Let's just say I wasn't as focused on what I wanted at the time, and so that kind of led me astray, and I just wasn't able to really sit down and set my sights on accomplishing some goals. So that's, like I said, a story for another time. And but I was able. I had just a not so good Big Ten tournament, and I ended up not qualifying for the NCAA tournament. And back then they didn't have the RPI or ever how that works nowadays. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you do.
It's pretty complicated.
It is so complicated. That's why I don't even want to think about it.
Don't worry about it.
I'm not worried about it. But what they had wild cards.
Right.
And each the Big Ten coaches would vote. And I was a 3-time NCAA qualifier at that point. I lost twice in the All-American round. Again. So the Big Ten coaches voted me in as a wild card. So I get a bid to the NCAA tournament, and I get there, and I have no idea who I'm wrestling. I show up to the NCAA tournament, and I'm like, I'm not even looking at the bracket. I don't care. I told the coaches, don't tell me. I told the teammates of mine to not tell me who I'm wrestling. So we weigh in the first day of NCAAs on that Thursday, and we're set up in this locker room. When you show up at the arena, you're out there scouting space. You want the prime real estate to set up your recovery station. Your book bags, all that stuff. Your workouts, your workout gear. So we got this locker room. I think we're posted up in there with Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State, and we're there, and like I eat my pre-meal. Or pre-competition meal. I can't even tell you what it is anymore. I lay down for a little bit, and then X amount of time before I wrestle my first match, I get up and I warm up. And so I go through my warm up, and I go to the bathroom. I go back in the locker room, and I think Coach Guerrero was back there, and we go in, and I'm using the urinal. He's using the one next to me, and there's just like awkwardness, and I don't know why. And so I don't think anything of it. I wash my hands. I get out of there. And now I'm in the tunnel, and I'm getting ready to warm up. And there's the Okie State squad. Their guys warming up. It was Shin, Travis or Trevor. I'm sorry, Shin. I can't remember your first name. I apologize. So I'm sitting there, and their guys warming up. And then John Smith is just staring at me.
Oh boy.
Like this blank stare, and I'm like, dude, what's this guy doing? Like,
Why is he giving you eyeballs?
I have your singlet. I wore your singlet when I was like 6 years old, when you were winning national champions in the early 90s, or winning world championships in the early 90s. I'm like, why is this guy eyeballing me like this? Like, he's just a blank stare, right? And I'm going through my warm up. I got my headphones on, and I'm in the tunnel. Like I said, I'm waiting to get my mat assignment. And still, again, Coach Smith is just staring. I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, okay, and Coach Guerrero's, talking to his guy, hyping his guy up, getting him ready to go. And then they make the announcement, Mark McKnight and Shin of Okie State, you're now on mat, whatever, one. And
it's Tyler Shin.
Tyler Shin. I'm sorry, Tyler. Great competitor, man. That was a heck of a match too. And so he was staring at me, right? And I'm like, what's going on? And then I find out that's why, I was wrestling Shin the first round. and I'm like, okay, so that was kind of it. Maybe it was intimidation. Maybe he was trying to figure me out. I don't know. And so earlier that year, Penn State was ranked 3rd in the country.
Right.
and Okie State was ranked second. We traveled to Oklahoma to wrestle these guys. And that was a big match. Okay. Third place team versus second place team. And there's a snowstorm, which like they get an inch of snow, and nobody drives in Oklahoma in an inch of snow. Everybody knows that. So, what's it, Gallagher Arena or something?
Gallagher.
Yeah, you know what's up. So we show up, and the stands are like, there's not that many people. That place would have been rocking. Right. And we show up to wrestle, and it's kind of like it's just a mediocre crowd. And first match, I'm wrestling their other starter. They had another guy, Ashmore, and we're tied going into the third, and but he has riding time. So we're in this crazy scramble, short time. The referee stops it with 4 seconds left. He calls a stalemate in this scramble. So we come up to our feet, and I don't know what happened. I posted my hand. He grabbed my wrist. I wrist rolled. I ducked. I took him down with 4 seconds left to win that match.
Oh boy!
And that was a huge team swing because we didn't
6
win.
Points, right?
I mean, we got 3 for us. I mean, they had that match locked up, and here I am. I pulled this miracle duck out of my back pocket, and so the Okie State coaching staff probably didn't have the best taste in their mouths after I did that.
Oh man!
And
then they
probably we went on to win the duel, and we picked up some big bonus points from some of our studs like Bubba Jenkins and Phil Davis both picked up bonus points. We had a couple guys. I can't remember the match details as well. I do remember a couple of our guys were battling and not giving up bonus points. We had a couple starters out, and we found a way to win that duel. It was awesome. I wish that arena would have been a little more rocking, but I still got a feel for that arena. They put this big giant pad behind the visitors bench. And then when there's 10 seconds left, they take this giant paddle and they just beat this pad 10, 9, 8. It is so obnoxious. It is slightly intimidating. And at one point, I took the paddle and was beating it, just joking with the students that were using it. So that was a great memory. And you know what? I asked Coleman Scott about that. I told him my story. Coleman, obviously a great competitor for Oklahoma State, now coach at North Carolina. Hey, who I competed against in my childhood.
Yeah. Many times. Listen to the old podcast. You'll hear me talk about Coleman a bunch. But I asked him, I said, what was Smith doing? And he goes, you know what, Mark? He does that. Every once in a while, he'll get that far off stare, and there's a chance he wasn't even thinking about you. That dude has so much running around in his mind. So it was just kind of interesting that I got, Coleman's perspective on it too. So that's awesome. Wow, that's pretty crazy. So that was your run-in with John Smith, NCAA's 2008.
Yeah.
And I just pulled up the bracket here really quick. And excuse me if I did. And on
Good
a little
job.
tangent. So Coach, you lost to Charlie Falk, second match, right?
Yeah.
And then you come back and you beat him in the Conci semis, right?
Yes.
What do you remember what adjustments you made between those matches?
That's a great question, Jude. Dude, that was an eye-opening experience, like what I was able to pull off at NCAA's. I came from an unseeded position, and I kind of ran the gauntlet, and I took I took fourth, right? And I will say this: my teammates, remember how I told them I didn't want to know who I'm wrestling? Right. Well, they informed me after. They were like, "You don't want to know?" Oh, and then they told me. I'm not gonna tell you who they were. But they were so nice enough to inform me of my next match. And then what happened? I ended up losing. Right. And then I got mad at them and I told them, stop it. So, and Charlie had beaten me several times. He beat me in I think the dual meet that year. Maybe one other time. I mean, he was just an awesome hand fighter. He had a great right-handed head inside single, which, was to my left lead leg. So, he was really strong and able to pull it in. But I caught him. I caught him in that Concies match, and that was the third day of weigh-ins. And like you said, he was pretty jacked up. Right. And I've wrestled him before, and I just was on fire to.
Mm-hmm.
And my mindset too, when I dropped down into the losers bracket before I get to that match with Charlie, I just started thinking about it. And I'll never forget this. On the second day of NCAAs, I was jogging around and warming up around the arena, and it stopped and hit me. I stopped. I remember looking around. There's the lights. There's all these wrestlers running around, and it all turns into a blur. And I realized that I could never be a national champion in wrestling. Like right then and there, that hit me right in the face. And I took that and I said, you know what? This is no longer about me. My team is good enough to win this national championship this year. You know, we got a shot at least placing top 3. We have a long shot of winning. I mean, Iowa was just stacked that year. But we could do that. And I made it about the team. And I started wrestling for them. And I forgot about everything else. And I just went out there and let it rip, let it fly. And, you know, that's why I was able to do a shin whizzer tilt to Charlie Falk. I had never hit that move in my entire life. And then I pull it off in the Concies match against somebody I've never beaten. You know? Man. So, you know, that's just with that mindset. I just didn't care. I was doing it for my squad. And I think that carried me, you know, a long ways in that tournament. Funny story about the shin whizzer tilt. I got hit in that in 2001 PIAA state finals by a guy named Jones. And he's the one that they nicknamed it off of Jonesy, the Jonesy tilt. And then I learned it from Matt Storniolo because he kind of trained out of that same club out east in Pennsylvania, head coach at Northwestern. He shows me what happened to me. I learn it. 7 years later, I use it for the first time.
Comes back full circle. Oh my gosh.
It's so
That's
funny
wild.
That's so funny how that works.
Yeah, that whole tournament. So for those who don't know, Coach Mark gave me a whole bunch, like maybe 5 or 6 of his old wrestling DVDs of footage of when he was in college. It was from that 2007, 2008 season, with the purpose of putting them all on digital. So I spent the whole day Friday, and just spent the whole day, put them onto my computer, and I watched all the matches. And that tournament, like I want to say it's the match after the blood round. I think it's sudden victory. I can't remember exactly who, but you were like so dead to right taken down.
James Nicholson.
Yeah, so dead to right taken down. So you were so toast, and you just keep wrestling, man. Like I don't know, maybe we'll release some of this footage. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, we should definitely, especially now that we're talking about it. Crazy story about that, James Nicholson, right? So we met after the blood round, and this is like several years later. I'm down at Old Dominion again. Matt Storniolo was an assistant coach down there. That's where he got his foot in the door coaching before he went to Northwestern, and I'm down there visiting him. So me and Nicholson work out.
Whoa!
Right, and we're working out, and he was teaching like a clinic or something, and I went to help him, and he was showing that same position that we were in, where he had to go behind, and he said, "Guys, when you do this go behind, you always want to grab this leg,
right?
Don't ever go around the waist." He's like, "I learned a hard lesson." He points to me at the NCAA tournament because of this guy, because I made the one time I went around the waist, it cost me a match.
Oh my gosh!
And it was so wild that I was there, and he, you know.
Right.
I ran into him last year coaching at the schoolboy national duels for Team PA.
No
way. He's down in Alabama making things happen. So, yeah,
that's crazy.
Shout out James Nicholson.
So now we know you don't go around the waist on your go behinds, far ankle or near hamstring, but not around the waist.
There you go.
Man, Coach, you have any other stories for us? Any other run-ins with head coaches?
I got plenty. Let's go with 2016. The setting is the training center, the USA Training Center down in Rio De Janeiro, Brazil, for the Olympics.
Summer Olympics.
Summer Olympics. And me and Coach Cael flew down, and we were there. We had our guy Frank Molinaro down there representing United States and Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, and me and Frank worked out a lot that year, and I don't think I've been slammed so many times in my life.
What was the size difference between you two?
Oh, easily. Well, he was making 65, so I would say 15 to I would say 15 pounds of just solid man muscle.
Yeah, he's
like
Frank the Tank for a reason, right?
Absolutely shredded. And he was working on this technique that involved me getting slammed a lot. Definitely slammed me the hardest I've ever been slammed in my life. But me and Coach Cael are down there, and this was a wild morning. So the United States Training Center, where at least most of the wrestlers were staying, was off-site. The USA Wrestling and some of the other combat sports had this little off-site facility that was kind of really close to the Olympic Village and then the actual arenas and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the first day of the men's wrestling, I believe. First day of men's wrestling. I get everything confused. I'm sorry. But I get a call at 6:30 in the morning. I had missed a call from an Iowa number. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, weird. And then I get a call from Cody Sanderson. He's like, McKnight, what are you doing? I'm like, Coach, I just got up at 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
Like, what's up? He's like, hey, can you wrestle with Daniel Dennis? I'm like, whatever you need, right? Go USA. Mm-hmm. What happened was Spencer Lee was out there training, and he got sick. I mean, that stuff happens when you're overseas. Right. You can eat something weird, water, you drink the wrong water, whatever. So he wasn't feeling well, and they're like, hey, we need you to warm up Daniel Dennis. I'm like, all right. So I wake up, I pack my bag. I chugged some iced tea because that was my caffeine intake. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a coffee maker. And so I'm ready. I'm sitting there waiting for Coach Brands to call me and say, hey, here's what we're going to do. Here's the plan. So he calls me. He's like, Mark, we're going to figure it out. We're going to get you Spencer's credentials. We're going to find a way to get you into the arena. We're going to warm up Daniel Dennis. I said, okay. And I'm waiting. And then as time goes on, I get a call back. And he said, hey, Mark, Coach Brands calls me. He's like, hey, Mark, I don't need you. Spencer's feeling a little bit better. He's going to go there and help Daniel out and be his workout partner. I said, awesome, Coach. Whatever you need, guys. So I kind of hang out, and I'm waiting for Coach Cael to wake up, and then we're going to go and we're going to work out with Frank at that alternative site. Me and Coach Cael were staying at another location. So we get there, and we go through practice, and we're hanging out. The food was incredible. They brought the Olympic Training Center staff there from Colorado Springs to cook for us, and
nice.
They were doing a great job. So shout out to them. And we're sitting there, and Coach Cael's playing Clash of Clans, and I'm suntanning after practice with Frank. We eat, we're hanging out, and Daniel Dennis loses first round, and then the guy who lost his next match, so that gets Daniel out. No chance at repechage. So we're sitting there, and Brands comes back, and he has this bag, and he's just, he's kind of just bummed out, respectfully so. And me and Cael had this plan that we were going to scale this mountain that's overlooking the training facility. And so we're sitting there, and he's like, we're communicating, like we're almost ready to go. And then out of nowhere, Cael's like, hey, Brands, you want to climb this mountain with me and McKnight? And he just goes, yep. Let me grab something to eat, change my clothes. So he goes and eats something real quick, and he said, meet me in the dormitory. I'm gonna go change my clothes. So we go into the dorm, and he goes, hey, McKnight, you're gonna climb that mountain in shorts? And I'm like, yeah, why not? He's like, I wouldn't do that. Here's some sweatpants. So he gives me these pair of Burn sweatpants. I put them on, and he's bundled up. He's got long sleeves and everything on. I think Coach Cael had a long sleeve shirt on, and he had shorts on.
Was it hot outside, or was it?
It was very humid.
Nice.
South America, it's pretty humid, and it's a rainforest. Right. So we started up this mountain, and our goal was to make it to this cliff face and try to go up as high as we can. Mm-hmm. And I'm in the woods all the time here in Pennsylvania trying to kill Bambi and everything. and so, I'm no stranger to the woods. But, Jude, we're in a South American country, and it's a tropical rainforest.
Right.
And I'm not used to these plants, animals, and everything. And so, and then the other thing is, it looked like it was kind of like it wasn't that steep, but then you actually get underneath the canopy, and there's these cliff faces, and we had to switch back and forth.
Whoa.
And you would think, you got the head coach of a power Big Ten school for Iowa, and the head coach of Penn State, kind of rivals-ish. One would say.
And
And you got me. We're all competitors. were all in good shape. You'd think it'd be a race to get to the top of the mountain.
Right.
But that wasn't the case. You know, we were in unfamiliar land, unfamiliar territory. So we were watching each other's backs, and we would take turns like leading each other on the way up, and we'd zigzag back and forth. And it was kind of cool. Like, you know, I would walk one way and kind of shimmy up this like little path, or I'd climb on some trees. And a lot of these trees, because they were growing on the side of a mountain, their roots would hang down like 20 feet.
Yeah.
Like really cool.
Like long.
Yeah, and they're anchored into the mountain. So I'm like shimmying up them. Coach Cael is shimmying up them. Brands is coming along. And we finally make it to all the way to the top as far as we could go. And, you know, it kind of – if I skirted away from them, I was a little bit smaller, so I was able to kind of get a little bit away. And I was taking pictures of overlooking Rio. Just beautiful, absolutely breathtaking. Right. And then we made the trek down. But one thing, on the way up, I was in the lead. You know, again, it wasn't a competition. I was just kind of, you know, moving a little bit quicker than the other guys.
You're nimble.
I'm nimble, exactly. I come up over this cliff, and I hear this squawking, rah, this horrible noise, and this big black ball of whatever just floats up into the air, and I'm pretty sure I said a curse word I shouldn't, and I see this bird just emerge from the ground, and it flies up into the air. And then it parks itself up to my left behind me, and it just starts yelling at us. And it was a big vulture.
Whoa.
And, you know, I'm looking at this thing like ready to defend myself. You know, I got a pocket knife. Let's go. And and then I look on the ground, and there were 2 eggs. It was nesting its eggs on the ground, you know. And it was just kind of cool. You don't see that
That's cool.
stuff.
That's super cool.
So then we make our way back down, and we kind of scale and wrap around another way, and we try to take like a less steeper way down. And we just saw these big old tropical trees. I mean, they had been over 100 years old, just absolutely wild and beautiful. And, you know, we make it back down and you know, we take that jungle selfie. I think Coach Cael tweeted that.
Yeah.
Selfie jungle BFFs for life or something like several years ago.
Yeah.
You know, it was really cool. And we made it back down, and Brands is like, keep those sweatpants, Mark. And I actually walked through a spider web or something. Yeah. And I got this allergic reaction on my neck, and it was super, super itchy. And I went in and I washed it off, and I travel with all kinds of ointment creams. Just, you never know what you're going to run into.
Right.
Especially when you're, you know, in a tropical world and environment. And I just put some cortisone cream on it and healed up pretty quick.
Oh, that's good.
And
you still have the sweatpants?
No, dude, they were ruined. They were like, yeah. You would keep them, but you know,
I'd put
they were
right
like,
on my wall.
They were some local. You would have got the autograph first too. There's some like local high schools, like you probably got like doing a clinic or something. And like me and Brands go way back, because when I transferred from Buffalo, I went down to Virginia Tech when he was coaching down there, and actually considered going to that school when I transferred. And I actually I had my mind made up almost. Well, pretty much did. And then my transcripts went through, and you know, I wasn't the studious student as well as I was. And when you transfer from one school to the other, some schools have higher stipulations for grades, and it just didn't work out mathematically that I could make it to school there. And you know, it would have put me back too many credits. And I ended up saying, "Sorry, coach, this isn't going to work out." And then I ended up at Penn State.
Well, Penn State's a pretty dang, you know, at least to my understanding. Good college, right? And it's pretty hard to transfer into it, right? Is that difficult for you at all?
No. Yeah. I ended up transferring, and I lost a lot of credits. So I was ineligible coming in, but I had a red shirt to burn. You know, I didn't get the hang of school. I had a really bad GPA the first semester, and then the second semester I had a really, really good one, like Dean's List.
Nice.
And so, but that first semester set me behind, and I didn't understand that. Young college kid didn't understand how it worked, and I learned a hard lesson. But I ended up being behind on credits, so I went to summer school at Penn State, an entire full year of catching up and everything, and then I had to go to summer school again. So I went to school for and then I was eligible, and then I competed and started for them the next 2 years. And I mean, I put myself in that hole, but I learned a valuable lesson, how school works, you know. And hey, at the end of the day, if I would have just got good grades and went to class a little bit more, I wouldn't have been in that predicament. So tough lesson, but I learned it.
That's really interesting. And that's kind of the stuff that you don't actually you don't get to hear, right? You don't get to hear about different college kids, like the things that they go through. We don't get to hear the kind of stories of, what's going on behind the scenes with you and John Smith and what's going on climbing a mountain with Cael and Tom Brady. We don't get to hear that stuff. So all the wrestling fan sees is the finished product. And so it's cool that you have all these stories and that you're willing to come on my silly little podcast just to talk about it. But
hey, I tease you that it's silly, but
it is silly.
Swisher, I think you and Sam and everybody, you guys are doing a great job. I truly believe that you have the best intentions for the wrestling community. So, but if I feel like I'm not doing my job if I'm not giving you a hard time, because, what I want you to do is I want you to win out there on the wrestling mat, which, you're doing a great job of. So,
right.
But I'm still going to remind you that comes first, and, not putting on a headset and, interviewing your club coach.
Right. And Coach, something I noticed actually about this interview, I think you've called me Jude more than you ever have in my entire life. Because it's usually Swisher. I think you usually just call me Swisher or Swish.
Yeah. Well, just name recognition. Name recognition. I even, what's funny is I even call your dad Swisher.
Yeah.
Like I'll see Brandon and I'm like, hey, what's up, Swisher? So
and you call Ezra. You're like, what's up, Ezra?
By default, because there's two seniors over him, right? Your dad and him. Ezra is Ezra, and plus, I'm not gonna lie, his name is extremely unique. So
right,
and I really like saying it.
Every chance you get, you're gonna say it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, hey Coach, this interview's. I think it's wrapping up here pretty quickly. Now before you go, I have a couple last questions. First of all, you've already accomplished a lot in your lifetime. NCAA All-American and coaching and all sorts of stuff. What are some other goals you have for your life? Maybe like a bucket list of some kind.
Outside of wrestling?
Outside of wrestling.
Well, this one. You know what I'm going to say, right? Mm-hmm. Right off the bat? What is it?
No, I don't know what it is. Give it to me.
Okay. I'm going to shoot a deer with antlers.
Oh.
A lot the viewers don't know, but Coach Mark spends a lot of time in the woods.
A lot of time.
He always has mistakes that happen where I just don't shoot deer or I miss for just silly little things. And I live in central Pennsylvania and I'm coaching central Pennsylvania boys who grow up with rifles in their hands taking down deer.
So on the first day of deer season.
I'm coaching 6 and 7 year olds. And they're showing me pictures of the buck they shot. And they're like, where's your buck, Coach Mark? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. How about we talk about you got to stay in your stance and not worry about my hunting.
Oh, man.
So that's up there, man. I'm psyched, too. I got a trail cam out. I'm checking pictures. Let's go. I got bucks. Let's go.
You doing any extra, you go into the range at all? You doing any extra shooting?
Not yet. I'm gonna get that archery going. I'm gonna go over to Chad Dubin's and sight in my bow and practice from my stand and make sure I know how to get the proper angle. There's a lot that goes into it, and I think I really done a better job this year more than ever of educating myself what to do because nobody taught me. Right? I had one mentor that kind of showed me the ropes, and then after that, it's left up to me.
Right?
So because I only started hunting five years ago. I love the woods, and I was just like, I'm doing this. In my childhood, I was spent growing up in a gymnasium competing. So, no regrets though. And, I want to circle back to, I know I said outside of wrestling goals, but I do want to say from a coaching's perspective, one of my goals that I think would be so cool is to have a kid start in my elementary program. And then I get to coach them from the time they're 6, 7, 8 years old. Yeah. And then I get to coach them all the way up.
All the way up
to the Olympics. Right. And obviously in college and stuff, you hand them off and, you're going to hand them off to the Olympic team. But, I still want to be that guy that they're asking for advice. I want to, like Jeff Buxton's a perfect example, what he's able to do and how he travels. That's one of my goals. I want to take a 6-year-old who came underneath our system, my program, and make sure they can achieve their goals. And I want to be right there beside them. And, I have that experience, right? I'm really good at coaching 5-year-olds, and I have that senior level experience. So, I think it can be something that it can be done.
Any other goals you have outside of the sport of wrestling?
I'm a pretty simple man, Jude. So, I don't really require much.
Right.
So, I think right now my sights are set on getting that buck. Archery starts in a little over a month. So I'm focused on, coaching you guys, coaching the senior level athletes, and, getting me a deer with antlers this year.
Nice. Well, hey, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to mount it? Put it up in M2?
Yeah. My brother-in-law always jokes. They're back in Pittsburgh. They got 3 boys, and, I'm not around that much, but when I do show up, I talk about all the things I like. And I buy them things that I like. So for Christmas, I got them a big blow-up deer. Yeah. And they practice, taking it down. That's what I did. They're awesome. 5. They're 6, 4, and 1.5. All boys. So I'm trying to get them to like the things that their uncle likes.
Nice.
And where was I going with this? Oh, he always jokes because I miss deer. He gives me a hard time all the time. Right. When are you going to kill a deer? You always talk about hunting. You never kill a deer. And I said, you know what? I can't wait till I get to that first one, because I'm going to get it mounted, and then I'm going to hang it over your fireplace, guys. I'm going to do you the honor of looking at it every day.
Oh, man. You're prove you wrong, right? Yeah. And then listen, after you get the first one, they just keep coming to get better and better and better.
So I've been told. So I need to get that first one out of the way.
Oh, you're going to have to gut a deer by yourself. And
I have shot a doe in the past.
Okay. Oh, you want antlers.
That's why I keep saying antlers or a buck.
Antlers. All right.
I have experienced it in gutting a deer and dragging it and all that stuff.
All right.
And that doesn't bother me. I'm not worried about that. So I can handle that. I'm not worried about that. I'll handle it.
That's good. Well, Coach Mark, as this interview wraps up, is there any last thoughts you want to leave our listeners with? Maybe a pearl of wisdom or a little nugget of information or something like that.
I'll probably end them with just and you hear, it's cool because you hear the Penn State guy. You hear the coaching staff. Everybody's talking about fun this, fun that, and I think that's that. Well, what is the emphasis of, or why are you wrestling? What is the purpose? You want your kid, you want your wrestler to enjoy it, and that's why I was trying to give those tips and what to say, from a parent watching a practice perspective, or from a parent or a coach watching or cornering a kid, is if you change the way or the things that you're telling them and talking to them, it's going to make it more fun. When you're not talking about winning and losing, and you're just talking about, hey, pay attention to the coach. Hey, I didn't see you. The coach said you need to hustle in. When we say bring it in, you didn't hustle in. And that makes the kid think about something else, right? Not necessarily getting their hand raised, but focusing on being the best wrestler they can be. So, that's my little nugget is focus on those little things that you can control, and from a parent's perspective too, right? So that's it.
Man. And so I'm very grateful you took your time out of your super busy schedule. You're so busy.
I owe you one. You took this old man's DVD collection of old wrestling videos and you digitized it.
Right.
So, I had to return the favor, Swish.
Yeah, pick up that flash drive and we'll get them to you.
Yeah, I will. I'm going to order it on Amazon. It should be here in a couple of days. So
awesome. Can't wait. And for everyone else who made it through this whole dang interview, thank you so much for listening to. This is episode 48, the Home Mat Advantage Wrestling Podcast. This is the 48th interview. So that means there's 47 others, plus the original one with Mark McKnight. That one, he's in a car and he nearly gets hit or something, and he starts freaking out.
No.
It's pretty funny.
I saw a cop.
I saw a cop and he was going too fast.
I was.
Yeah. Well, I highly suggest, if you haven't listened to that, you should go back and check that out. But yeah, thank you so much, Coach Mark McKnight, and thank you to everyone who stuck around and listened. So
no problem, Jude. Thanks for the opportunity, man.
All right. I'll see you guys around.